My aunt actually was just found just recently on the floor of her house, and she was so cold she was blue, and she's in hospital now and she probably won't come out.
I very much limit my heating. I have it set at 10 degrees. It's not really warm enough. I've got about 8 layers of clothes every day to try and keep warm.
Fakers like Nigel Farage and the racists of Reform UK take up this issue in a wholly opportunistic manner, when really it should be the unions that are fronting it up. Blame the rich and the politicians, not refugees, migrants and Muslims. The winter fuel payment cuts is a real attack on millions of working class people. I've recently become a pensioner, I'm 67, and I know that I think every time before I turn the heating on. And it comes with a whole number of other effects. People's health gets worse, their housing gets damp. It means that you can't fulfill your life in a way that you might have been able to before. And I think the lesson for the Labour government has to be they should be taxing the rich rather than stealing money from the pockets of the poor. And we want this policy to be changed.
I'm 80 years old, so I suppose I come into that gap, and I'm comfortably off. But there's other people in my generation. In fact, my aunt actually was just found just recently on the floor of her house, and she was so cold she was blue. Yeah, and she's in hospital now and she probably won't come out. But the thing is, it's people like that on their own. They're too proud to ask for help, and there's a lot of those people. I know there's some people who can support themselves, quite wealthy people. I'm not talking about those people. They always will get a various amount of different people's positions, situations, wealth, money, whatever. At the end of the day, it comes down to money, if you can afford to pay your bills. And we were getting that money, and people were relying on that money to if you like, help them out, and some people really were and are hard up.
I'm here on behalf of all the pensioners who can't afford to pay their heating bills. They're having to live in a cold home, possibly the damp will grow, and they've got to cut back on other things like good food. It's absolutely a disaster for older people.
Have you been affected by the scrapping of the universal winter fuel allowance?
I very much limit my heating. I have it set at 10 degrees. It's not really warm enough. I've got about 8 layers of clothes every day to try and keep warm.
Some people might say that why should very wealthy pensioners be receiving a universal benefit for a winter fuel payment? What would you say to that?
The problem with means testing, that's where you try and see how much people have in their bank accounts before you give them the payment, is that it means some people lose out who should be getting the payment. If we want to deal with the very rich, and we should be dealing with the very rich, the way to do that is to put up taxes for the top 1% in society. There's research that shows that a wealth tax on the top 1% would raise at least £25 billion a year. That's more than the government's claim of their black hole in the finances, and it would be a fair way of dealing with any problems rather than attacking the poorest in society.
The Labour government have said that they're still protecting the poorest pensioners. They're not. Why is that?
Absolutely not, because a lot of the old age pensioners are too proud to ask for help. And a lot of them are not computer literate. They don't do financial banking, they deal in cash. So giving them that money, if you like, was money to spend. It was a lifeline for a lot of old people. And I'm sorry to say it, but I think some people probably have died.
There are many people on a very low income who either are not eligible for pension credit because it's just above the limit, or because it's too complicated to claim it.
Ironically, in Unite, because most of our members have got a pension, these are the ones that are most affected. They're just above the threshold. They're the ones that are having their benefits cut. But people rely on this money. And they're just really angered and annoyed that the first decision of a Labour government would be to attack pensioners, the vast majority of them which went out and voted for them last summer.
Well, yes, I'm in favour of universal benefits. I mean, yes, you're right. I mean, some old age pensions, like the King, doesn't really need it. Richard Branson doesn't really need it. But universal benefits, it's just like the NHS. I mean, we don't discriminate against someone who's got a lot of money if they're ill. So why should we discriminate against someone if they get cold?
Why do you think it's important for Unite, an organisation that represents workers, to be campaigning on an issue that affects pensioners?
All of us who are workers will one day, we hope, be old enough to retire. And therefore, the money that we put away in national insurance payments and in our taxation is deferred wages, which we expect to get back when we are retired. And the winter fuel payment is part of that. So it's an issue, whether you're 18 or 98, this question, and I'm very glad that Unite has taken it up. I wish other unions would do so, and that there was more of a furore over this. And I'd just say it's very important for Unite to do this, because otherwise fakers like Nigel Farage and the racists of Reform UK take up this issue in a wholly opportunistic manner, when really it should be the unions that are fronting it up. Blame the rich and the politicians, not refugees, migrants and Muslims.
We've got over 100,000 retired members in Unite, and last summer, after the shocking decision was announced to cut the winter fuel allowance, our retired members asked us to back them and campaign against this cruel and unnecessary cut.
Are you disappointed in how the Labour government has handled this issue?
I'm extremely disappointed, but I'm afraid I'm not surprised. It was obvious from when Keir Starmer took over that they were going to pander to the big corporations and the rich, and that's what they've continued to do. And on the 26th of March, the Chancellor Rachel Reeves will come forward with her financial outlook statement. Let's see in that a shift of policy. And if there isn't, they are going to reap the whirlwind of strikes and protests and campaigns, because they are attacking working class people rather than looking after them.
I don't think they should call themselves the Labour Party, because what they are is the Tory Party number 2. They're following all the things that don't help working people, working class people, pensioners, anybody on a low income. The government doesn't care. And it was one of the first pieces of legislation to take money away from low-income pensioners.
We're really disappointed with the Labour Party in Unite. We've only got to look at what's happening to our steel industry, what's happening to our NHS, what's happening to the workers in Grangemouth, for example. All these things, where industries where our retired members would have once worked, that's been taken away now for the next generation. Not only is it causing hopelessness for young people, they're also picking the pockets of the old people as well. We want Labour to look after working class people, support working class people, and if they don't do that, then I'm afraid that I don't think they'll be re-elected.